Welcome to another episode of FUMO, the Future Money Podcast. On this episode today, we will be having with us Mr. Usman from Zodia. And what we have as our conversation topics today will be an interesting dive into why he's looking to move to Abu Dhabi, what makes it a special place here in the UAE for him to leverage his company and what he wants to do in the world of crypto. As usual, we'd also like to thank our partners in crime on this podcast, the usual MENA Fintech Association, CFTE, and of course MICO, where we have this podcast hosted very graciously. Last but not least, we could not do this without the help of our wonderful sponsors. A big shout out and thank you to Aquanow and of course XDC.
Usman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to be talking about crypto, Bitcoin, your journey into this space, and also building Zodia. But let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about you and how did you get involved in crypto? Why crypto?
So I'm a technologist.
Okay.
So I spent most of my career, I started my career and spent most of my career in financial services, in investment banking. As a technologist, I kind of joke that I was in Fintech before Fintech existed. So the kind of construct a bit in between of finance and technology, that was kind of where I started my life. But kind of winding forward, kind of probably 2014, 2015 onwards, I was at HSBC. I was running a lot of the fixed income technology stack, including all of the derivatives post-trade. And I had every vendor in the world coming to me trying to sell me this great new thing called blockchain. And I was like, okay, this feels like it's a...
This is 2014.
It's 2014, 2015. This feels like it could be quite interesting, but it feels like a technology that's searching for a problem to solve at the time, right? And I looked at it, I started investigating it. We were looking at doing some kind of partnerships, working on doing derivatives post-trade on blockchain technology. And I realized actually this could be quite interesting, quite transformational. I had no idea about Bitcoin or anything else. My first interaction with Bitcoin was probably a year before. Where a guy that used to work with me in Hong Kong at HSBC.
You were in Hong Kong at this stage?
Yes, my career kind of spanned the world. I'll come into that in a second. But he sent me an email. I'd just moved to New York, as it happened. He sent an email out saying, in 2013, I've discovered Bitcoin. I'm leaving banking.
This is in 2013
This is in 2013 in Hong Kong. I've just moved to New York, and I've gone... I just looked at the email. I was like, and I filed it. In the circular receptacle.
Printed and framed it later.
Sure. But I was just like, okay, I don't even know what this guy's talking about. He's leaving banking, fine. Fast forward a couple of years, I'm now hearing about blockchain technology. I realized pretty quickly that at the time, banks weren't going to really be able to adopt. Right? The whole premise around blockchain is being distributed. Right, and so my first interaction was, when you try and get banks to work together, and you'll know this as well as anyone, unless the regulators force them, it doesn't really happen constructively. And so wind forward another few years, I'm on a business trip in Hong Kong. The guy that sent me the email in 2013, I bump into him on the street. So I'm now looking into blockchain. I'm trying to understand.
And this is which year?
This is 2018.
2018. Oh, 5 years.
Yeah. So 5 years later, I bump into him. He's on his way to dinner. I'm on my way to dinner. We arrange to grab a coffee. And he says, look, I'm about to take his company public. We're scaling the business.
Right.
Would you be interested in joining?
Okay.
And that was kind of the start of my journey from banking, leaving the banking world behind, or so I thought, and moving into crypto.
Eventually banking.
5 years to email pulling the pin on a grenade to going IPO. I think I would be interested in having that conversation about joining a company. That's
when did you first get into fintech and Bitcoin?
He stole my line. Hang on one second. He did. Wait, did you guys sabotage me? He stole my line. Fintech before fintech. That's
fintech before fintech. See, if you'd come to the prep meeting.
You know, I have to pretend really hard to work for a living, right? So it entails work. So yeah.
Fintech before fintech.
Fintech before fintech. 40 years for the family, for us. It's only 20 for me in comparison. Long enough.
Well, about the same. So I was 25 years. So there you go. About the same period. Right?
How did you? I mean, you saw some people getting into fintech into Bitcoin and crypto, and it's 2013 to 2018, that kind of early transformative period in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is like a big part of Bitcoin and crypto, right? There's a kind of story there that sometimes outside Asia gets missed, probably, about just how important Hong Kong is to this narrative, because in a way, that's how I got involved as well. Though I didn't pull the pin and actually go and start a business like you did, and we'll come on to that in a second, but it was through Hong Kong.
Okay.
I used to visit Hong Kong a lot in 2015, 16, 17, and something was in the air, right? Yeah. Why do you think Hong Kong and Bitcoin and crypto are such good bedfellows, like partners in crime?
It's funny because I look back on it and I 100% agree. Yeah. And I don't know if...
There's something about Hong Kong, right?
I was probably the tail end of it, right? So I landed 2018. So I relocated from London back to Hong Kong. This was the second time in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And at that point, when we touched upon kind of industry bodies, but the Fintech Association of Hong Kong had a blockchain subcommittee. Yeah. The company I joined, which was OSL, was hosting the monthlies in kind of the boardroom. And you basically had, I would now regard some of the brightest minds in crypto all there at the same time.
Really?
And
which year are we now in?
So this is still 2018. So it's 2018, 2019. But that had already been formed. So that group had kind of coalesced. They created the Fintech Association of Hong Kong. They were talking to the regulators. Yeah. The regulators started kind of looking at it and adapting. And I don't know if it's just kind of something in Hong Kong as being a connecting location, being a gateway to China. I don't know if that was something to do with it. But the SFC in Hong Kong in 2019, I think it was it was actually 2018, November 2018, issued, we're going to start looking at it in earnest, opened a sandbox. I got involved in the sandbox with OSL, and next thing you know, there's a regulatory framework, and I think I ended up becoming one of the first 5 or 6 properly regulated individuals in crypto. Wow. Right, through a company that was listed, audited by PricewaterhouseCoopers. They were the first ever kind of crypto client for PwC, of a listed company. So it was a combination, a confluence of factors. But I think it was one of those. There was a number of the early crypto firms that were based in Hong Kong. Yeah. Right. So Binance were there. There was obviously Alameda FTX. We don't necessarily talk about as much anymore. Who? BitMEX were also there. Right. So you had you had a number of these firms. So there was. There just happened to be a number of people, and call it the OGs of crypto that had been involved since the early 2010s.
I mean, Hong Kong was Dubai before Dubai was Dubai when it came to crypto.
Absolutely.
Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and Gaurav, they're now building here in this wonderful region. So do you want to?
Yeah, I mean,
take over and grill Usman. Why Abu Dhabi? Why Dubai? What is Zodia?
What
is Zodia?
We should really unpack that. So you have to walk us through that. What is Zodia?
So why don't I take you through kind of the origin story? Because I got to the 2018 and my journey into crypto. Yeah. So wind forward another 2.5 years. We're kind of in the early stages of COVID, mid 2020s. Through that journey, we'd been working at OSL, we've been working with Standard Chartered. Many people don't know that Standard Chartered tried to put a Bitcoin transaction through their financial markets business in 2018, and they used OSL as a partner to help them. Okay. Right? So they started investigating. They realized that actually, 8 decimal places blew everything up. It wasn't going to process, wasn't going to work, right?
So just explain that. Where does 8 decimal? What do you mean by 8 decimal places?
Thank you. So Bitcoin prices are priced not only in the 2, 3, 4 decimal places before, 110,000 effective yesterday, but usually then end up with a decimal point and up to 8 decimal places afterwards. Right. Most bank systems can only cope with 2.
2 decimal places.
2 decimal places, right?
Currencies tend to have 2 decimal places.
Or 4 if you're a really special currency.
Yes, exactly. 4 if you're really special.
But not digital, just special currency.
Exactly. 8 was one factor that just blew up the system. They just couldn't cope with it. And then all the conversations back then were about, do you round? Do you truncate? It's like, or you have a system that copes.
Which has to be a brand new system.
Which has to be a brand new system.
Because you have to go to compliance and field
Exactly.
measures and people and have other systems on the other side doing the same thing. Yeah, we're geeking out now.
I
We're
know.
geeking
But-
out now.
So
Yeah,
winding
it's good,
forward,
it's
bring
good.
us back into the real world.
So it was just the number of
Decimal
that was
points
one
can break
major
a
factor,
can
yeah,
break a
could
global
break a global
number-
banking system. Yeah.
number of decimal places.
or
yeah.
have it stuck in a permanent rut.
Yeah. So that was one reason. I'm sure there was many others, but wind forward, Standard Chartered Ventures then started to think about launching a crypto custodian.
Right.
At OSL, I responded as it happened. I'd launched OSL's custody offering, a regulated and insured custody offering in 2019. There's another story about that.
Oh,
we can
here's
share
a
another
poaching
time,
moment.
right? But then, so we were talking to them. They went a different direction at the time, but we helped and we engaged.
Sure.
FATF in June 2019 was published. We ended up working with Standard Chartered to run the kind of global implementation working group. So there's a load of stuff going on. They came to us in 2020 and said, look, we'd like to do something in the trading space. Are you interested in partnering? Long story short, wind forward, a year later, or 8-9 months later, we signed a partnership agreement, and that was the foundation, the forming of Zodia Markets. I became the founding CEO of that
So it
business.
came out of SC Ventures or it came out of an independent?
So it was an independent but a partnership. So it was a
Okay.
partnership between SC Ventures, backed by Standard Chartered, and OSL.
So they don't
Right.
own you, they didn't fund you, they didn't back you, it's a partnership.
So it was a partnership. I mean, they capitalized the business and helped us to fund the business and then scale it. So yes, they are a majority owner.
And what was the proposition? Why? What does Zodia do?
So Zodia Markets is really a trading business. So we started as, the proposition was, we've started doing custody. This is Standard Chartered Ventures.
Yeah.
We'd like to look at the trading side of that so we can complete the ecosystem. So we have a sister company called Zodia Custody. That was the original business. Then Zodia Markets was formed. I was adamant we were going to set them up as separate businesses. This is pre-FTX, bear in mind. So I was
Right.
like, look, segregation of duties, institutional regulated background that I had. I was like, this space needs to have proper, not just Chinese walls. It needs proper brick high walls.
You also don't
between
know which way
functions.
people are going to react on both. So you have to
Yeah.
protect both halves of the business effectively.
But in 2020, 2021, that wasn't common,
No.
Right.
right?
No, everyone's rushing.
exactly.
Everyone's rushing to do a land grab for anything in any way possible,
And-
along with investor money and
But
sentiment.
there was also, because businesses had formed, they
Yeah.
couldn't rely on others because there weren't these segregation of duties or functions. There were no regulatory frameworks.
Yeah.
So we were kind of a little bit ahead of our time.
Yeah.
And honestly, in the run up, so let's call it 2022, Terra Luna, all this is starting to go south.
Sideways.
But people were kind of going, okay, but you've kind of made it harder for us because we're used to having just one stop shop that does everything,
Yeah.
custody, execution, etc. This is, we're not quite sure you've got it right. Then November 22, FTX goes boom. Those same people are picking up the phone going, you guys have got the right business model.
Yep.
But meanwhile, we've just launched into a massive bear market, and it's a challenging time, right? There's not, whilst people are saying you've got the right business model,
Yeah.
we're also not doing any business in crypto for that period, right?
And are you backed by investors or you
So there's this,
partners?
so SC Ventures has funded, OSL has funded.
Because the pressure is completely different on a business
It
when
is,
when
it
you're
is.
you've got your own money in there and the ropes around your own neck
Yeah.
versus
We were quite
having
lucky.
to deal with other people.
Yeah, we were quite lucky in some respects, in as much
You had
as
benevolent.
Yeah, it was more
funders.
of a we're in this for the long haul. We need to understand how we go. We think
Yeah.
we've got the right outcome here,
Yeah.
but we evolved.
It's a big play.
Yeah.
You're not talking about single market. It sounds
Yeah.
like you're doing multi-market.
No, absolutely. But at the time, we launched in the UK. We got our regulatory approval there. The registration in Ireland took a little longer with the Central Bank of Ireland. So it was very much a kind of an EMEA play to start with MEA, Middle East Africa, definitely on that roadmap, but it wasn't early.
Right.
Wind forward, what happened and you'll know this super well, but what happened in March 2023, the regional banking crisis in the US. So Silicon Valley Bank,
The runs
Signature,
on banks.
Yeah.
and then Credit Suisse gets absorbed into UBS. And we're sat there in 23 going, okay, we've got something a little unique in this ecosystem. We've got stable banking through our parent. We've got access to wholesale FX rates. We've got access to wholesale capital.
Yeah.
We kind of need to lean into that. And so mid 23 onwards, we started leaning into that. We started opening up multi-currency accounts. And in 2024, the business just took off. So January 24, clients started transacting predominantly in local currencies versus stablecoins because they said, actually, the speed of efficiency, the future of money, right? How money is going to evolve, we need to get capital faster.
Right.
And the business has just taken off since then. So yeah, that's kind of where we are right now.
It's amazing, in conversations I've had as an investor, looking at how people are investing or looking at businesses to make money or to domicile their businesses in different geographies. The Middle East was never a conversation when you talk about macro services or macro businesses in the crypto space that you're talking about working with. I'm not talking about like wallets, or I'm not talking about the B2C side of things. I'm talking about the B2B side of things, the real chunky, large tracks of money that can be happening from markets. And it's the reverse now in the last 2 years. You can't talk about doing a business anywhere else than not being here in the UAE. So you're going to be based out of the UAE. Which part are you setting up in?
So we've already set up. So as part of that journey, when we were going through our applications, registrations, and regulations, we said, you know what, this is not going as quickly as we had hoped in the UK and Ireland. We said, look, Middle East was always on the roadmap. Let's just take a look. So at the time, this is 22, 23. We're kind of going, okay, where do we land? Being very candid, Vara wasn't really there yet. It was an idea. It was starting to form. Whereas we looked at Abu Dhabi and ADGM, and they'd had a framework in place around crypto since 2018, 2019, right? And had a pretty established team there.
Right.
As it happens, we knew a couple of members that had come out of that team.
Yeah, because a lot of them came from Hong Kong and Singapore, right? And they
few
brought
came
that
from
experience
a few came from Hong Kong and Singapore,
thirst for being advanced.
And so there was that kind of, and also as it happens, Stanchart Ventures and Zodia Custody had taken a guy, Chris Q. Smith, who's now at City, I think, most recently.
Yeah, he's moved on.
Has he moved on?
Yeah.
Okay. But he was in that journey, and he'd helped to write the regulatory framework in Abu Dhabi. He'd introduced us to a few people. So we started talking to the team there and thought, actually, here's a really credible regulator with an interesting view. They've adapted kind of frameworks from traditional regulatory kind of areas and applied them to crypto, and we thought that made a lot of sense. As I said, Vara was still forming at that time, so it became an obvious opportunity for us to, whilst we were waiting for other regulators to start engaging, we got our FCA registration, so we were able to launch the business, so we kind of repivoted, focused on launching the business, but meanwhile continued the process. So we, I think we properly re-engaged in 2023, probably about February 23. We got our in-principle approval in about August 23, so about 6 months. And then we were focused on developing the business and obviously growing it. And then in December 24, we got our full services permissions from ADGM. And we actively launched that business kind of properly a few months ago.
So I have two questions, right? And they're sort of loosely linked together. The first question is, how much of your vision or your approach to come to this region is just from being in a very advanced regulatory framework versus how much business you can actually do here? Because the reason I ask that is because the perception of your business, because we're learning about it here and we're sort of communicating that to our listeners, is there such a volume of business to cater for a customer segment here? Or is it because the regulatory environment to the world effectively is you can do business with the world from here in that space? And so I'd just love to understand that context a little bit more about your approach to that.
So both is the simple and easy answer. The regulatory framework means that we've got a foundation that we can work with around the world.
And long term.
That being said, for the duration that I was just talking about, the UAE did end up on the grey list with FATF for a while. So that was an evolution that needs to be managed and solved. But we were buyers of the location. For us, actually, as it happens, probably 2/3 of our global flow is now coming from the Middle East.
Oh,
or,
wow.
Or regions associated to the Middle East.
Can you give us an indication of those volumes, or we're not? Is that
and when
too
you
sensitive?
say flows, just unpack it for the audience. What does that mean? This is like trading.
Yep, this is
crypto
trading. This is trading flows. Well, it's more, again, as I talked
Yeah.
about, our business evolved from kind of a pure crypto trading to really doing a lot of cross-border movement and facilitation of capital movement, right? So this is local currency into stable coins. And so we're probably one of the largest market participants doing Arab dirhams into US dollar stable coins.
Into stable coins from dirhams, interesting.
Yeah, so, and
again,
we're doing
just
that
for
across,
the audience,
so
we
we're
just
doing
kind
that
of
across multiple currencies
just
as well.
unpack that. Like, what is, sorry, this might be a very basic 101 question, but this is the education
need
bit,
it,
guys.
yes, yeah.
So what is a stable coin, and why would someone be taking their dirhams, their AED dirhams, their Emirati dirhams, and putting it into a stable coin?
Sure.
And it's a very basic question.
No,
it's a good one.
stable coins, I mean, the easiest definition is it's a digital asset that's pegged or backed by a real world asset.
Yeah.
In this case, a currency.
Yeah.
So the biggest stable coins by market cap right now are dollar denominated. So you've got Tether, which is the dominant market participant, and then you've got Circle, which is relatively close behind.
Yeah.
I think Tether's market cap is about $160 billion, maybe $150 billion. Circle's is about $65 billion. So those are essentially a digital asset that's backed by US dollars, arguably one for one with capital reserves in treasuries and various other short-term money market instruments. So that is it works on the same technology as Bitcoin, as an example, but has a stable value. It's pegged one-to-one to a currency. And we're now seeing the rise of non-dollar stable coins, and there's some Arab dirham stable coins that are coming and many others. Hong Kong dollar as an example. So why would someone want to pivot out of their local currency or into a stable coin? It depends on the market. So as an example, the biggest market that we first penetrated, and we're probably still one of the biggest participants in, is Turkey and Turkish lira. So Turkey, very high interest rates, massive inflation, and people wanting to transact and hedge against that. But also the world still works in dollars. So there are firms that are working internationally kind of need to get out of Turkish lira and into dollars or a dollar equivalent. And we found a lot of these firms wanted to get that really quickly. So the FX markets, I think you both know, or hopefully your listeners all know, generally settle at a wholesale level after 2 days. I send you money, Ronit, and you'll get it in 2 days' time. Now, our clients are going, well, that's way too long. We've got trading strategies. We need to pay people. We've got movement of money.
It's also slightly more expensive.
It's
just a little bit more expensive.
Right? And particularly in a non-zero interest rate environment, right? Where interest rates have gone up, you're locking money up, a large scale amount of money for 2 days, you're not getting the interest, the yield on that. So it's even more expensive when you think about that. So that's one angle in terms of local currency management. In the UAE, that doesn't really count because the Arab dirham is pegged to the US dollar. But I think it's the speed and efficiency and mitigation of the expense. But it's speed and efficiency and transparency.
And this business, which is, you said a lot of your business flow is dirham, AED into stablecoins, dollar stablecoins. And that business has been growing, I imagine, because of the growth in the crypto market. Stablecoin volumes are obviously up a lot.
Yes.
In the last 2-3 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any kind of numbers you can share with the audience of how fast the stablecoin market in general is growing and what your outlook is for this market?
I'll share some numbers from our business directly, so I'll be open enough to share that. So last year we transacted in about $8 billion of stablecoins full year, about 10 or 11 billion dollars in total flow last year. This is all single-sided kind of trading volumes. I'll change the landscape slightly. This year to date to the end of April. So we're filming it late May, but end of April. We have processed, not transacted. We have processed over $15 billion of dollar stable coins year to date.
Double last year within
first 4 months. First 4 months of the year.
So you're running at like 3x the speed of last year or something like that. Ballpark.
And how much of it
so
is
11 last year? You said Sorry, how much did you say?
About 10 in total, right?
last
Stablecoins
year.
was about 8 of that.
8 of the 10.
So
right.
this year we've done 15 just in dollar stablecoins.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Just
super
in 4 months.
interested-
It's not even, sorry.
No,
it's
go
not
ahead,
even it's like annualized 6 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super curious looking at that, right? Because you're servicing individuals as well as
No, so
only businesses,
largely
correct? Just to be
businesses,
clear.
largely institutions. So yeah.
So this is what's also this. If it's only businesses that you're doing and your volumes are growing at such a fast rate,
Yeah.
how much of that flow, just out of curiosity, if you can share, is up on a rate with your existing customer set versus how much your base has increased is also just an interesting metric because
so most of that, because it's the first 4 months of the year, most of it is based upon the same customer set as last year. So, but there are significant new customers that have come on board as well. So, but largely, I mean, again,
so people are doubling down and tripling down their positions just to make sure that
And these are, again, without breaching any client confidentiality, these are like family offices, banks. What kind of institutions are we talking about?
I mean,
good to profile,
it's a wide profile. A lot of these firms are in the ecosystem, or in the crypto ecosystem.
okay.
So, trading firms, exchanges, brokerages.
So they could be international
they
firms that
could-
happen to have
that have flows that are coming
Abu
through.
Dhabi entity or a
And again,
Dubai
this is
entity.
global flows, not just UAE
Yeah.
flows, right? Just from a reference perspective.
Sure. But you said a lot of these flows are being done out of this region. So it's being
Well,
done out of this
across
region.
Turkey, across the UAE, across the GCC more
So
broadly as well.
GCC and Turkey, and it's often in Turkey, obviously a lot of local players, I guess. But in the GCC, are these like in
Local
the UAE,
plus international.
lot of
So
international
regulated
players,
firms in the
okay,
UAE,
yeah.
which there's lots of, but also international firms. We've got a number of firms out of the US that are doing more flow on a cross-border basis, and we're also seeing huge interest from large-scale corporates, multinational corporates looking at enablement of capital efficiency.
they have to. There's no choice anymore. They have to. They have to be educated or they have to streamline their business. But just another question, Ronan, before I hand back to you, because I know we're short on
running,
time,
we have to wrap up,
is we've talked about Turkey, right? And that's actually very interesting for me. I could speak a lot more or want to actually understand a lot more. But I want to shift to the side a little bit and say, my understanding is the continent of Africa. I remember at one point, Nigeria shut down all crypto transactions because 25% of all their money was outflowing away from the economy and not coming back in because it was going through conversions into crypto, not even stable coins at that point. What about the continent of Africa?
It's massive. So it's a huge opportunity.
We talk about Turkey, but my understanding is the continent is... You've described so many similar perfect storms there for you to have as
And
customers.
I think so. Yeah, no, 100%. And we're working with partners in Africa to try and help unlock. I think the challenge is we talk about Africa as a whole, just like we talk about regions, right? And
but at least 6 countries are significant.
no,
there.
absolutely. There's a significant number of countries, all of whom, however, operate independently of each other and have
very different
local
rules and-
requirements, local nuances, banking, etc. So we're being quite careful. We really want to try and tap into Africa, but equally, in some respects, you can't try and rule the world, right? Not immediately. We've got
Who
to wait.
said? How dare you make such
You have to prioritize
some assumptions?
So which, if you had to sort of prioritize your bets, the top 2 or 3
we like
bets.
to partner with people in different locations as well, right? So Africa, absolutely. There's some firms that we're trying to work closely with and helping enable their cross-border flows.
Yeah.
We're looking at Latin America.
Okay.
We're looking at different markets in Latin America, and part of what we look at is corridors, right? Trade corridors, movement.
You guys should talk to Jeeves. That's what they do.
Okay.
That's all they do. Like hundreds and thousands of businesses with multi-currency accounts. LATAM, USA, everything. Yeah.
So unfortunately, we're
Yeah.
out
We
of
are running
time.
out
So
of
maybe
time.
one last question. You're going all in Abu Dhabi, right? You've moved here from London. I'm talking personally rather than the business. You've moved here from London.
I'm in the process of.
You're in the process of moving. The family are coming over. 60 seconds. Why Abu Dhabi? Why base yourself for the next leg of your career in Abu Dhabi and not London or Hong Kong or?
It's a really great question. And
60 seconds.
60 seconds, it's opportunity. Opportunity to grow and scale.
Yeah.
I see the world moving further east.
Yep.
Rather, the traditional Western economies, the world is moving further east, and the Middle East kind of sums it up, right? If the world's moving further east, I'd rather be in the middle of that move.
The world's- yeah.
And so the opportunities, I mean, like you described earlier, I mean, Hong Kong, Singapore,
Yeah.
20 years ago, fast growing, rapid adoption,
Yeah.
opening their borders
Yeah.
and helping companies to invest and scale.
Yeah.
Personally, I see those opportunities being meaningful.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I can do my role from anywhere. I spend a lot of time on a plane, maybe not as much as you run it, but I spend a lot of time on a plane.
We'll compare miles later, guys. Okay, let's not get into this.
No, let's
now.
not get into
Let's
this
not get
now.
into
No, I'm not
Let's
comparing, I'm not
let's not
competing.
feud.
But
But you see the world moving east, and
I do
this
see
is
the
the
world
middle of
moving
the east. So
Or the center of the new world of digital currencies.
like the capital of digital currencies is
That too.
and I think it's as the world does evolve, you want to position yourself whereby
Yeah.
you can help influence
Absolutely.
the future. And I think the regulators
Yeah.
here, the industry here,
Yeah.
it's very open to developing, and I think that's super important.
the future's being built here, and you want to be part of it. Thank you so much, Usman,
Yeah.
for joining us
Absolute
on Fumo.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you.